Okay, so you've heard me talk about operators and allowances in the payment architecture video. But what actually are these things, and why you should care? Well, imagine that you hired a manager for your rental apartments. You want them to handle the day-to-day stuff, collect rent, pay for repairs, deal with tenants. But you probably don't want to give them unlimited access to your bank account, right? You would set some boundaries. Maybe they can spend up to $5,000 without asking you. Anything bigger than that, they need your approval. That's basically what operators and allowances do in Filecoin Onchain Cloud. They let you delegate control while keeping guardrails in place. Let's dig in. So, first, what is an operator? An operator is a smart contract that can manage payment rails on your behalf. When you're using the Filecoin Warm Start service, that service contract is your operator. Here is what an operator can do. They can create payment rails from your account to storage providers. Think of a rail as a dedicated payment channel, like a pipe that money flows through. The operator set up the pipe, define the flow rate, and money moves automatically as storage proofs come in. They can modify rail terms. Need to increase your storage? The operator can bump up the payment rate. Need to extend your storage duration? The operator handles it. They can settle payments. When a storage provider approves, they still have your data. The operator can trigger settlement so funds actually transfer. And critically, they can terminate rails when you're done with a service. Now that's a lot of power, right? Which is exactly why allowances exist. Allowances are your spending controls. They are the limits you set on what an operator can do with your funds. There are three key allowances you need to understand. First is rate allowance. This is the maximum per epoch spending rate you are authorizing across all payment rails that operator manages for you. Quick reminder, an epoch in Filecoin is 30 seconds. So if you set a rate allowance of 1 USDFC per epoch, you are saying this operator can set up payment streams that drain at almost 1 USDFC every 30 seconds from my account. Rate allowance is cumulative across rails. If an operator creates 3 rails, it's at 0.3 USDFC per epoch, that's 0.9 total, which is under your 1 USDFC limit. Try to create a 4th rail at 0.2. That would push you to 1.1, which exceeds your allowance, so the transaction fails. Second is lockup allowance. This one is about guarantees. When you store data with a provider, they want some assurance you will actually pay them. So the system let operators lock up funds as a commitment. Your lockup allowance caps how much can be locked across all your rails. Think of it like a security deposit. The provider knows that even if you stop adding funds, there is funds set aside to cover a grace period. Your lockup allowance limits how much can be committed this way. Third is max lockup period. This restricts how far into the future any single rail can lock your funds. If you set a max lockup period of 30 days worth of epochs, the operator can create a rail that locks funds for 90 days. This prevents an operator from tying up your capital for longer than you are comfortable with. Now let me walk you through how would you actually set up this app in practice. When a user first interacts with your app, they need to do 2 things. Deposit funds into their Filecoin Pay account and approve Filecoin Warm Start service as an operator with specific allowances. The Synapse SDK actually has a convenience function that combines this into a single transaction. You call deposit with permit and approve operator, passing how much to deposit and the 3 allowance values. 1 transaction and the user is fully set up. The user is essentially saying, here's some USDFC, and you, operator, can spend up to this rate, lock up to this amount, and for up to this duration. For existing users who want to do more, there is an increased operator approval function that lets them boost their allowances without re-specifying everything. Alright, let's talk security, because this operator model introduces some real considerations you need to think about. First, operators have significant power. Once approved, an operator can create rails, modify payment rates, and trigger settlements. If your dApp contract has a bug, or worse, gets compromised, it could potentially drain user funds up to the allowances limit. This is why the allowance system exists. Even a malicious operator can only spend up to the rate allowance, lockup to the lockup allowance, and for no longer than the max lockup period. The damage is bounded. Second, users should set sensible limits. Don't approve an unknown or unaudited operator contract with a rate allowance of $1 million USDFC if you're only storing a few gigabytes. Match your allowances to your actual expected usage. Leave some buffer for growth, but don't give blanket unlimited permission. Third, there is a 30-day buffer requirement. The warm storage service specifically requires that your balance covers at least 30 days of storage at your current rate. If you drop below that buffer, providers are allowed to remove your data. This isn't the operator being mean. It's protection mechanism so providers aren't stuck storing data for someone who stopped paying. Fourth, allowances are cumulative and persistent. When you approve an operator, those allowances add to any existing usage. If you already have active rails consuming part of your allowance, new rails have to fit within what remains. And when a rail terminates, the freed up allowance becomes available for new rails. One more thing that's worth understanding, the relationship between deposit and allowances. Your deposit is how much actual money you have in your Filecoin Pay account. Your allowances control how an operator can use that money. Having a large deposit but small allowances means you've got funds sitting there that can't be spent by an operator. Safe but capital inefficient. Having large allowances but a small deposit means the operator has permissions to spend, but there is nothing to spend. Rails will fail to create if there aren't sufficient funds to meet lockup requirements. The sweet spot is matching your deposit to your expected storage duration and setting up allowances that cover your planned usage with reasonable headroom. So that's operators and allowances. There are the permission system that makes delegated storage management possible while keeping users in control of their funds. In the next video, we will look at payment rails themselves, how to work with multiple rails, set up conditional payments, and monitor everything that's happening with your storage. Alright, go explore those SDK functions. See you in the next one.